Join Lisbeth and I for a quick conversation about how female leaders can empower women in their organizations. Happy Women's History Month. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Brittany Chiang. I'm Chief Executive Officer at Flatter Incorporated. And today I have a friend here with me, friend and colleague Lisbeth Ceballos. She's a Vice President at G6 Hospitality and a certified executive coach at Flatter Inc. And just, extremely well-seasoned executive in her industry. So today, to celebrate Women's History Month and just to talk a little bit about women in leadership and business, we're going to be discussing what we can do as leaders to promote women's success in a variety of different industries.
But it has been very intentional to get there. So it's like you said, there is a lot of room. We have to be very very clear and intentional on trying to help other women understand what can we do to make sure that they can be heard and get to a highest position. What about you in your industry? How about you have been a CEO for a couple of years now, for 3 years now. So how was your ride there?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, I mean, speaking of being intentional, for the first time in a while, I actually looked at some of the stats in my own company of, where is the female representation? Where are we as compared to industry? And company-wide, our numbers are good. We have about 46% females in the company-wide. But I did find that we're almost overrepresented at our headquarters, with more than half of the representation being female at our headquarters. And then once you go on site to the government sites, we're much lower. We're like 15% lower than our headquarters on the government side, so around 35% female. So, we're in the federal contracting industry and dealing a lot with the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, where at the general officer level, there's about 5% representation of females at that level. So, similar, I think, to what you're talking about in your executive ranks in the general officer level in the military, there's, the representation there has a huge area for improvement. I think it's much better on the industry side with the private companies, and I think they see the value of having a female workforce and just creating an environment where females are valued, because we're really bringing a lot to the table. And it's maybe just a little bit more slowly moving on the government side.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because even and then if you go to the Hispanic population, which is what I'm trying to focus a lot on the throughout all the associations that I'm involved with, is precisely to try to really culturally, even we come from a place where we it's very hard to be just assertive with authority. Early on in my career, I was considered borderline disrespectful at times when I was just simply being assertive on giving my opinion. So today, when I talk to a lot of the young females that are coming up in the industry, and SMU also has a program to Latinos and to women. And one of the things that I tell them is like, we need to start by understanding that it is okay to have your voice and to express it, because your ideas are valuable. So it's almost like you need to start by teaching, and that's why I'm so passionate about working always anything with Flatter, because courageous leadership is exactly that courage to make sure that you understand that it's okay to be assertive, it's okay to be authentic, it's okay to be culturally your own voice. And I struggle with that, and I was a different person, different identity at work versus home for years, especially being, in a male dominated industry early on. So I don't think that cultural perception has changed much. We are trying, we talk about it a lot, but I still find that when there is executive male in charge, unless they are growth mindset, the tendency is to dismiss mostly, um, women, and either they get frustrated or they decide to go somewhere else, etc. So it's it's just um, a lot that we need to change, but we had also made a lot of progress. So,
Right.
what would you recommend that we can do if I'm a young female, if I want to grow in a company? What could I do?
Right. Yeah, that's a tough question because everyone's path is different, and when you see a female executive, you want to ask her, "Hey, what was your path? How did you get here?" But a lot of the times, the policies that you implement to support people are kind of different than maybe the path that some females have taken to get where they are. One thing that I've tried to do at my company to support women is to be really sensitive of motherhood and what it means to be a mother. One year, I remember I sent out, this was like 7 years ago, an email to my employees on Father's Day, and I sent about 7 emails in my headquarters to fathers. And then similarly, when Mother's Day had come around, I only had one mother to write an email to. So I was like, goodness gracious, fathers are succeeding here in this industry, whereas a lot of the females are not mothers. They're single, or, they don't have children. So I mean, I really wanted, as a mother, to be supportive of that. So we've allowed mothers to bring their babies to work, which seems kind of extreme, but for the first 4 months, we'll allow an infant in the office until they're crawling around and need a little bit more space to play. But from birth to 4 months, infants are allowed in our headquarters. Another thing that we've been doing is implementing we have a bereavement policy, and we've been extending that explicitly in our handbook to miscarriage. So when a woman miscarries, she can opt to take paid time off for that, and then of course there's other health implications that,
Wow.
that might apply, but just kind of considering what is different about the female experience and things that might emotionally or physically, hold women out of the workforce, and trying to eliminate some of those barriers.
I applaud you, and that's why I honestly think I didn't realize that you had 46% female force, and that is awesome. It really is. Is a way to grow faster also by having those kind of policies that are very friendly. Truthfully, I wish that at some point in my life that would have been the case for me, because in situations like you just mentioned, like miscarriages or things that are extremely, extremely painful and difficult for women. And they have to pretend that everything is okay at work and continue to lead so that they don't look weak, quote unquote. And to have the freedom and the ability to, like, take time and recover, I think is just amazing. I mean, you're way ahead, and I've always said that the more you consider the different groups, and the, like you said, a baby in an office sounds crazy for some people, but you know what? I guarantee you that that is what has made several women stay with you now, because now you know that you don't have to struggle with that. It's very, very difficult. I mean, when we had Isabella, my wife carried, and she was born, and I took, of course, the typical few weeks early, but then after that I gotta continue to travel. And the first year she was somewhat sick, and it was so hard
Hmm.
to try to balance as a mother. And ended up being that one of us had to take a step back, and that was Jamie,
Hmm.
my spouse. And her career, she's successful in her own right, but she definitely not where she envisioned her career to go, because she had to put it all aside and take a different path as a
Hmm.
lawyer to look for a job 8 to 5 so that I could continue growing in my career. So
Right.
that's awesome. And we need to express more that need. I encourage more women to speak up and to say, "I need this." It
Hmm.
shouldn't. It shouldn't be an embarrassment to request time off for something that you're going through.
Right. An excellent point you made about executive coaching, and I personally have benefited greatly from executive coaching. And actually, my coach is a male, which I think is really excellent because he asks these questions of me, where he kind of points out some bias I might even have about myself, and says, why do you have that hesitation, or why do you have this perspective? And some of those things, might be personal barriers that are holding me back, and it's just so great to have a mentor to bounce ideas off of. So what do you think about how executive coaching might support women in the workplace, and maybe even the balance of having a female mentor vice a male mentor?
That's a great question. Actually, I think I mentioned to you that I've been, getting the emotional intelligence model certification and becoming a practitioner of trying to, in fact, I'm very close to my exam for the professional coaching certification by the International Coaching Federation. And the reason for that is precisely for what you said, because I envision that the largest, most critical skill sets that we're going to need. Actually, I read it also in Davos, the economic world summit, that says that the emotional intelligence is going to be critical. Now, when they talk about that, if you think about it, we are more, majority of us, more empathetic, right? Listen sometimes, depends, but more empathetic. We are that opening or hugging or things in that nature that right now, those leaders that already had that level, right, were the ones that were succeeding through the pandemic. So more than ever, I think that to have executive programs, coaching is very, very critical. And it's almost like everything else, of course, you offer it and you push the person, you push the women. And then what I try to do is I push them and then I say, but it's on your own. So you lead it. I'll be here for you. Right. So the reason why I think we need to do more of that. Now, whether it's female to male or two females, I think it all balances out. I believe that, you know, um, it doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter if you and I, we have coached each other sometimes when I have a challenge, and it's a business perspective, right? It's all what I call that executive brain completely developed. So the most important thing is to the more mature we get in our emotional intelligence with coaching, then you know that you're going to seek out the perspective of completely diverse individuals so that you can really make decisions with a much broader perspective,
Right.
So that, that's a long-winded answer, but I think it's important to acknowledge that um, the coaching really needs to focus is on you as a human being, as a person, holistically, not just the business side. What do you
Right.
think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's easy to make generalizations about men, women, any sort of other background, but really you're focusing in on the individuals and asking questions like, what can I do to help you be successful in this workplace? And I think it just turns out that the answers are a little bit different between the men and the women because, for the women, it might be, I'm really, having a tough time with childcare, or I've got, kids doing school from home, and I need a space for myself. I mean, something as simple as a nice Bose headset could be a huge tool that somehow, allows your employee to be successful. So I think as leaders, we should just be asking those questions and taking away those barriers as much as we can, no matter what they might be. I'm
Yeah,
coaching
what
a college student, and she was already talking to me about her fears of balancing a future family that doesn't even exist, isn't even in a relationship, isn't married, and is already worried about, I want to do these things in life, I want to travel internationally, etc. And I'm worried about how I'm going to balance that with a family. It's like, goodness gracious, like, lean into your
one
career
step at
today.
a time.
Yeah, one step at a time. Don't let those fears hold you back, and cross that bridge when you get to it.
That's the thing. I mean, you said something very powerful that made me think. One of the things that, of course, like every other company, right? We closed, and practically everybody went home.
Mhm.
And as the pandemic progressed, it's like there are some mothers and some fathers, inclusive, that had to make adjustments to their schedules because the kid was at home. Oh,
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
I know. I got lost for a second. But making adjustments that the perception that working from home people won't work as much
Mhm.
is totally inaccurate. I mean, the person that wants to work will work as hard, probably more from home, if they have the availability and possibility to spend time with their kid.
Right.
So, but these adjustments are a perfect example. If companies start forcing people to come back to offices, or instead of giving them choices,
Mhm.
that will definitely impact a lot of women. We were
Right.
disproportionately impacted during COVID, disproportionately because of that. Um, the children, you had two or three kids and they were home and they were homeschooled because none of the schools were open. You had those challenges yourself. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have 5 little ones at home, and it was just utter chaos for a couple months, but we got through it, and you kind of find a new balance. We really appreciated the opportunity that these customers, like I was saying, government customers can be a little bit rigid, and some of them had an absolute zero telework policy. And so, we're almost thankful of some of these outcomes, that their eyes were really open to how productive this workforce can be when they're not on government site every single day. You can do these things from home, and it just opens up the realm of the possible of who you can recruit, and um, even a diverse candidate that might not have been eligible before is somehow now applying for these positions. So I think it was a good change up.
Yeah, it's gonna help retention of women, and it's gonna help, of course. First, we work on retention before we can give them, the right coaching or mentoring. But it really helps to know that you can balance both, and you can do both things.
Hmm.
Um, Somebody asked me what is the most important, what has been the most important challenge in my career. I have always said it was like to try to pretend that I am the strongest person in the room, like almost having these superpowers. And then that is exhausting since I changed my views, thanks to actually courageous leadership. Um, I can tell you that being the same person everywhere and speaking of my strengths and also my challenges, then you know what? I've been more effective, more successful.
Hmm.
I feel like I can think clearer when I can be. the same person everywhere, you know?
Right.
So that's what we need to offer women.
Right. That, like you said before, your strengths in being assertiveness, that's a strength. And then also sometimes our vulnerability as females is also a strength. So it's a nice balance. One of the things I tell some of my female colleagues, and we do a lot of, hey, if you're going to send an email to a customer, send it to me first and we'll take a look at it. And one of the things I noticed with some female leaders is that they apologize a lot in their emails, and they kind of make concessions. Before you're going into a negotiation, you have to kind of present a strong front. I'm like, okay, take out all these maybes, take out all these sorries, just stick to the business writing, and come to the table with all your asks.
It is it is very interesting. You're absolutely right. Um, you don't realize it until you start like reading some of those emails, and you start as a CEO, of course, you have access to both. So I bet you can, it's a very insightful comment there that hopefully whomever listens to this remembers to, be objective, be factual, but be the leader that you can be. You don't have to apologize for being a leader. That's a superpower, actually.
So Elizabeth, any parting advice for leaders and how they can empower females in their organizations?
I always, for those that want to grow, just seek out, continue, grow, keep a growing mindset. Seek out mentors, seek out coaching, seek out executive. Yes, they say executive coaching or leadership coaching can be it's expensive, but when was the last time you picked up the phone, called somebody, and said, "Hey, can you help me?" I've done it numerous times
Mm-hmm.
without, for a dollar, like they say in our world. But also, for executives that are for males and females that are in executive positions, is continue opening the door for leadership coaching, for
Mm-hmm.
leadership development, and be intentional about when you think policies and you think procedures, how does that impact your female population?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to intentionally grow our executives at every level?
Absolutely. And that's a great point you make about affordability, because, certainly I would encourage organizations to develop their leaders from within and maybe have an executive coaching program. But for individuals, one of the things we're doing together is actually certifying executive coaches, and in those
Sure.
cohorts that are working on their certifications are looking at getting all of these hours. Some require in excess of 100 hours. So there's definitely experienced coaches out there who will coach for free or for a very small nominal amount to get their certs ready. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me about linking up if that's something you'd be interested in, or organizationally if it's something you want to build into your culture of developing leaders. So I think we've seen huge improvements in all of our leaders that have participated in it. And sometimes it's slow improvement, sometimes it's an epiphany overnight, but it really does make a difference. And more importantly, I think it opens up perspectives to, how do I ask open-ended questions? How do I really engage with my employees? And it actually makes people better communicators as they kind of come out of the coaching programs, that, they're able to y- observe, listen, and make really good decisions for their organization.
Absolutely. That's why you have almost 50% female, right? So keep on growing that number because seriously, we bring a wider, broader perspective many times that it really can help grow your business, grow the people, and everybody, I mean, share within the success of the company. And that's what has probably made you so successful. So kudos to you and flatter.
Thanks, Lisbeth. Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise this afternoon. And I really appreciate you coming in to celebrate Women's History Month with me.
Well, I can say by closing that Brittany is one of my favorite leaders. And one of the reasons for that, seriously, is because we are always bouncing facts versus, feelings. What are we really looking at? But helping each other. I have helped her. She has helped me a lot when I need to bounce off ideas on situations that I'm going through. So just remember, reach out. There will always be strong women out there that want to help you, and men too, help you in your career. Just express it, voice it, move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Brittany.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I think in closing, you brought up a really great point about female friendships and relationships. So thank you so much for being a friend in my life.
Thank you. You
Okay,
take
talk
care.
soon. Bye.
Bye.